alt-country singer-songwriter Todd Snider has died at 59. Those simple words alone feel almost impossible to process for the countless fans, fellow musicians, storytellers, drifters, and seekers who held him up as one of the rare artists who didn't just make music, he lived inside it, carved his soul into it, and invited people in with a kind of raw honesty that never felt manufactured. His death was first confirmed by People magazine, which reported that he died on November 14th after sustaining severe injuries in an alleged assault earlier in the Montana assault that now feels even more devastating in hindsight. Knowing what was lost, knowing the damage it caused, and knowing how fragile things already were for a man whose life and art often hovered in that unpredictable space between vulnerability, rebellion, humor, and heartache in the hours before his death. He had been diagnosed with walking pneumonia. Even that detail, small as it may seem in the tragedy of everything that followed, adds a painful layer to the story. On the day of his passing, Todd Snider was reportedly having trouble breathing, a struggle that pushed him into the care of hospital staff who tried to stabilize him. Walking pneumonia is often overlooked as a mild or slow-building illness, the kind of sickness that people tend to brush off, especially people like Todd, people who lived on the road, who kept moving even when their bodies begged them to slow down, who had spent years performing through pain, exhaustion, illness, and the heavy emotional weight that comes with the kind of career he had. But that day it was serious enough that he had been placed in the hospital, monitored, treated, and watched by medical professionals who surely saw in him what everyone else saw, a man whose spirit seemed far too stubborn, too brilliant, too alive to fade. His team released a statement during that time that hit fans in the chest with a kind of urgency that now, in retrospect, feels prophetic. Right now, we're asking everyone who loves Todd to hold him in your thoughts in whatever way feels right to you. The statement read, "Say a prayer, light a candle, roll one up, send strength, or just keep him close in your heart. You've carried him through so much over the years, and he needs that from all of us now more than ever." That message carried Todd's spirit, his voice, his humor, and his worldview that never fit neatly into any box. He was spiritual without being preachy, chaotic without being destructive, poetic without being pretentious. His fans weren't just supporters. They were companions on the strange, beautiful, tragic, hysterical ride that was Todd Snider's life and music. His team's call for love, prayers, candles, and rolled joints wasn't just a statement. It was a reflection of the man himself, the kind of man who could speak to the devout and the rebellious with the same sincerity. But on Saturday, the heartbreak came down like a hammer. Snider's team shared the news that no one wanted to believe. Aimless Inc. headquarters is heartbroken to share that our founder, our folk hero, our poet of the world, our vice president of the abrupt change department, the storyteller, our beloved Todd Daniel Snider has departed this world. Even that announcement, taking and poetic, felt like something Todd would have written himself if he could have. The humor in calling him the vice president of the abrupt change department, the reverence in labeling him the poet of the world, the bittersweet affection woven into every line, it captured the essence of a man who could take an ordinary moment and reshape it into a story that left people laughing, crying, or stunned into reflective silence. The statement continued, trying to grapple with a task that seems almost impossible, finding the right words for someone who was, in many ways, the master of words. Where do we find the words for the one who always had the right words? Who knew how to distill everything down to its essence with words and song while delivering the most devastating, hilarious, and impactful turn of phrases? The truth is, no words can entirely capture Todd Snider. He was too multidimensional, too contradictory, too alive in his contradictions, too honest about the messiness of life. He was the guy who told stories that were absurd but true, painful but funny, chaotic but grounded in the real human experiences that most people are too afraid to talk about. He sang about screw-ups, dreamers, lovers, addicts, wanderers, and outcasts often because he saw himself reflected in them. He made the flawed beautiful, the broken inspirational. The uncomfortable, profound dot there is still no official cause of death for the all right guy singer. And that unresolved space in the story, the lack of answers. The unfinished sentence adds another layer of heartbreak for fans and for those closest to him. But what is known paints a picture of a man who had been through a turbulent and physically damaging stretch of days in the weeks leading up to his passing. Snider had canceled his High, Lonesome, and Then Some tours after an arrest earlier in the month. On November 2nd, he was booked on charges of disorderly conduct, threat of violence, and trespassing. It was a moment that raised eyebrows among fans, many of whom understood that Todd Snider had always lived a life that danced along the edges of chaos. But what no one knew then was that this arrest was just one part of a larger and much darker situation. After his arrest, Snider was released in the early morning hours of November 3rd and immediately treated at a hospital. And that detail becomes crucial when paired with the emotional, alarming post that appeared on Snider's Instagram around the same time. The post revealed what many fans did not know. Todd sustained severe injuries as the victim of a violent assault outside of his hotel. That revelation sent shockwaves through his fan community. Todd Snider, the man known for his humor, his heart, his compassion, his warmth had been violently attacked, left with injuries so serious that they not only required hospitalization, but were significant enough to prompt the cancellation of his tour and the reshaping of his entire schedule. The team's message went on. Todd will be unable to perform for an undetermined amount of time. We deeply apologize for the cancellation and any inconvenience it causes. To the outside world, that message may have seemed like a routine announcement. To those who truly understood the magnitude of what it meant for Todd Snider to cancel shows, to back away from performing, to step out of the road life that defined him, the alarm bells were loud. Performing wasn't just something he did, was something he needed. It was woven into his identity. The road was his home. The stage was his confession booth. The microphone was both weapon and shield. For Todd Snider to cancel shows meant something far more serious was happening behind the scenes, as his condition worsened. The details slowly surfaced in fragments that painted a picture of trauma, illness, exhaustion, and the kind of medical complications that can snowball dangerously. The assault outside the hotel had left him with severe injuries, as that can escalate in unexpected and frightening ways, especially when paired with stress, physical strain, or pre-existing health conditions. Then came pneumonia, which is especially dangerous when the body is already under attack. In the days that followed, he struggled to breathe. His team asked for prayers and support. Fans waited with fear and love. And then, the world lost him. Todd Snider's death arrives, like the end of a chapter no one wanted to close. He was more than a musician, he was a chronicler of the American soul. A troubadour who roamed through decades of changing landscapes. With a guitar slung over his shoulder and a mischievous glint in his eye, he was part poet, part comedian, part philosopher, part wanderer. He had a way of cutting through the noise of life and getting to the heart of things so quickly that people often found themselves laughing even as they felt tears burning behind their eyes. He knew the world was absurd and unfair and beautiful and heartbreaking, and he didn't pretend otherwise. Instead, he put it all into songs and stories and jokes and one-liners that stuck with people forever.